Hello and welcome to the review of round 14 in the Eredivisie. Coming up, all the action from the weekend's 9 matches, beginning in Zwolle, where chances proved hard to come by in a foggy first half. Yunus Namli testing the Utrecht keeper David Jensen as the half-hour mark approached. This one pitted 2 of the top 6 against each other. Zwolle in 4th with only 1 defeat in the last 11 matches, and Utrecht, who'd recovered from a wobbly spell, to post a 4-match unbeaten run, winning the last 3. They managed to edge ahead with their first real opportunity. Girano Kirk and Yasin Ayub combining to set up Sander van der Streek at the far post. A first goal in almost 3 months for the midfielder, and just the third that Zwolle had conceded in the last 7 matches. Utrecht coach Erik ten Hag had felt that this might be a tight encounter, so striking first would be key. Their youthful striker Kirk, though, is yet to prove that he can score on a regular basis, and it was his missed chances that ultimately cost them 3 points. Towards the end of the first half, he had 3 in 3 minutes, taking the ball away from Dirk Marcellis, but not executing the finish there. Zwolle's veteran keeper Diedrich Boer got a little luckier with the second one, as the visitors worked Kirk into a shooting position. He's proved difficult to bypass in recent weeks, and he did enough to turn this onto the woodwork. Helped out by Marcellis, who scrambled it away. Still just the 1 goal this season for the striker. But he kept getting into good positions and didn't let his head drop. Beating Boer to the ball from the resulting corner, but seeing his effort cleared by Ryan Thomas on the line. But Zwolle did improve in the final half-hour of the game, and they too missed decent chances to swing the contest in their favour. They've already proved this season they have match winners in the squad. Saimak, Thomas and Yunus Mokhtar are all capable of providing inspiration and brilliance. The latter two combined here, the New Zealander's shot turned over by Mokhtar from inside the 6-yard box when it seemed easier to score. Not surprising, he was furious with himself. But not as cross as Kirk, who could have won the game all on his own. Set free here by a wonderful ball from Zakaria Labiad. He delayed his shot long enough for Van Polen to recover. That perhaps the best chance of the lot. And they were made to pay for all the misses when the hosts snatched an equaliser with 8 minutes left. Mokhtar and Saimak both involved, players who've been vital to their excellent start, but whose contracts run out in the summer. Van Polen's shot also proved crucial. Jensen looked to have dealt with it, but Saimak's follow-up was deadly accurate. After contributing the winner at Heerenveen last week, this was just as important and no less impressive. Negotiations continue to keep hold of both of them. Zwolle go to Excelsior next, while Utrecht hosts Feyenoord. Ahead of their match with Ajax, Twente paid tribute to Dick Wessels, one of the richest men in the Netherlands, who died last week after heart problems. A key investor in the club, he was particularly important in helping them out of last year's financial crisis, giving a guarantee of funds to ensure they avoided bankruptcy. His brother Herman was also chairman for 5 years at the turn of the century. The home side came into this on a 4-game losing run, still looking for a first point under new coach Gert-Jan Verbeek, while Ajax had scored 13 goals in their last 2 games and conceded just 1. But Twente managed to raise their game in a rollercoaster encounter with PSV, and did so again here. But midfielder Michael Lindell failed to hit the target from his position by the penalty spot. Still no goal in 13 appearances for the Austrian. Ajax coach Marcel Keizer went with a back 3 here and packed his midfield with creative talent. Donny van der Beek, Lasse Schöne and Frenkie de Jong all included, the latter having come on and changed the game in the previous outing with Roda, as well as Hakim Ziyech, who set that up for David Neres. Almost as good a chance as Lindel's. This also missed by a fraction. And the Brazilian winger couldn't quite believe it either. It was a better first half showing than they'd managed at home to Roda, but it took them a while to cap it with goals. But when they did, the goals came quickly. Playing on the left of a back 3, Maximilian Verber was encouraged to get forward, and did to good effect, before being taken out by Sander Teske. A yellow card resulted for the Twente captain, who felt he'd got the ball, and it probably looked worse than it was. 40 goals already to their name, Schöne was soon making it 41. Van der Beek peeling off the wall to allow him space to bend the free kick into the corner. The last time Ajax had scored this many at this stage of a season was 20 years ago. but they still lagged 8 points behind PSV. Schöne's second, 4 minutes later, though, looked like setting them on the way to a comfortable win. Justin Kluivert this time set it up after Hidde Arvis had lost the ball and played Twente into trouble. The man of the match, with a hat-trick against Roda, Kluivert was stopped abruptly by Jos Højveldt, who also picked up a booking. This time, Schöne went the other way, but with the same result. His 6th of the season already, only 3 short of his best total for Ajax. At this point, the coach's tactics were working well, with the visitors dominating in midfield. And 2 decisions from referee Dennis Higler had also put 2 of Twente's 3 centre-halves on thin ice. A first point under Verbeek looked unlikely from here. But he was impressed by the fight and spirit they showed in the second period, and Twente weren't impressed by Higler's decision in the final minute of normal time, after Joel Veltman blocked Tom Bora's goal-bound shot. But it seemed to come off his chest, although close to his arm. Wöber then twice got his head in the way to deny Pete Bayern as the home players converged on the official. Bora the most vocal. Difficult to tell either way from the replay. Perhaps emboldened by that and some bluntly delivered words from their coach at half-time, the Twente players came out fighting in the second half. Ringback Christian Cuevas certainly seemed fired up, and the Chilean's challenge on Neres didn't go down well, sparking a South American spat. It saw Neres booked for his part in this. But Cuevas, who's on loan from Chelsea, escaped. It was followed up by a much-needed goal, Tesca rising highest to head Twente back into the game. And the fact they were able to respond so early in the second period gave them hope, and got the crowd right behind them again. Second goal of the season for the German. And suddenly, Ajax's chance of a first win here in 5 seasons didn't look as strong. But with set pieces having already proved crucial, it was rash of Højveldt to concede another, particularly as the veteran defender had already been booked. The fact he escaped further punishment after bringing down Ziyech was clearly a surprise to Kaiser and his coaching team. Ajax too failed to exact punishment from the free kick. Veltman glancing one under the post, and Jon Brondale, the home keeper, doing well enough to prevent Matthijs de Ligt from forcing the ball in. As the snow then began, the game remained in the balance. Afterwards, though, Kaiser was forced to defend his tactics, which worked to perfection in the first half. He said their sloppiness in the second was what led to problems, the failure to retain possession, allowing Twente too many counter-attacks, although no one quite expected Tesca to do this. A brilliant strike from the big defender, who found himself forward from open play. Verbeek felt that if they showed this kind of fight in every game, then they'd easily pull away from trouble. But having got themselves out of a hole, they fell back in when Ajax themselves countered quickly. Neres may have missed out on the chance of a goal, but he gained an assist for the third by moving the ball onto Kluivert. He duly followed up last week's impressive performance with another goal. Making the most of his chance while Armin Younes recovers from a knee injury. This one did have a deflection to help it up and over Brondale, but it went down as Kluivert's goal. His 4th in 2 games. The imperative now was to see the game out and not risk falling any further behind the leaders, who've picked up wins even when not playing well this season. But the threat at the other end remained real, particularly when Veltman missed his clearance and allowed Bora to run in behind. The luck was with Ajax here, though, as Luciana Slagveer lunged for the ball, which eventually spun off a post via the head of defender Deivesio Zeefuik. But Kaiser too had reason to regret missed opportunities, as his side did indeed drop points and also drop out of second place. A 4th goal would have been enough to guarantee the win, but that proved elusive. Schöne started that move off by finding Neres but couldn't finish it. And And another set piece led to Twente grabbing a share of the points. Border heading in with 90 seconds of normal time remaining. Getting above Zefak and planting it out of Andre Onana's reach. He was prolific in the second tier last season, netting 33 in an average FC Ost side. Having made the step up, this made it 4 in 13 games, but he is big and physical and a big part of the way Twente play. Frustration on the visiting bench, but only joy for Verbeek. No way back this time for Ajax, although Ziyech did have the opportunity to be the match winner against his old side. A decent one too by his standards, but it was just enough pressure on his shot to put him off. As Verbeek counted down the seconds, his watch not matching the one held by the fourth official, so play continued beyond the allotted minimum of 4 minutes. But last-ditch defending proved to be enough as they saw out the additional seconds to register a welcome draw. Højveldt, the man, throwing himself in front of Siem de Jong's effort to leave the score at 3-3. Higler's whistle was what the home fans wanted to hear, and that came straight afterwards. They remained second bottom but have set themselves a benchmark. The result makes Ajax's game with PSV on Sunday a must-win. Having seemed close to losing his job, things have picked up for Groningen coach Ernest Faber, who even saw positives in last week's loss at Feyenoord. The big win over Vitesse prior to that seems to have injected confidence into his previously flagging side. And they were helped here by Ado, putting in what their coach Fons Groenendijk called the worst performance of the season. They were already missing the suspended Lex Immers and Tyrone Eboué, while Tom Boygelstijk was injured, and Melvin Lorentzen was soon added to that list after 2 challenges by Mike Tavierik left him crumpled on the ground. That was the end of his game, and after treatment, he limped off, replaced by Edouard Duplan. It was El Kayati who gave the home side hope in the first half. Their main creative threat, he carried on producing even while those around him struggled. Taking this one on himself, he came very close to opening the scoring in impressive fashion. Groningen keeper Sergio Pat wasn't going to get it if it had crept inside the post. Missing the injured Mimoun Mahi at the other end, the visitors struggled to create much in the first half, but came alive near the end. First, Juninho Bacuna's hoisted ball proved perfect for Tom van Weert, left alarmingly alone by the Ardo defence. But a standout tackle from Tom Meissner averted the danger. The Groningen striker delaying a fraction too long. No real appeal for a penalty, and the referee had a good view. Faber looked agitated not to get it, but it was well timed from the German defender. It was, however, a defensive mistake that saw Groningen strike at the end of first-half stoppage time. Donny Horta losing sight of Jesper Drost's through ball, and Ritsu Doan pouncing for a vital goal. The second for the Japanese under-20 international, who's on loan from Gamba Osaka. One to forget, though, for Horta, usually a more advanced midfielder who found himself tracking back. An assist of sorts for Drost, who went on to provide Groningen's other 2 goals as well. He also came close to a second early in the second half, as the Ardo goal led something of a charmed life. Bakuna's attempts to win a penalty weren't successful, as he ran into Aaron Myers, but his side's attempts on goal nearly were. Osama Idrissi's was kept out by Robert Svinkels, while Drost should have done better, leaving the frame of the goal rocking on the follow-up. Bakuna himself completed the trio of chances, as the home side rode their luck to remain in the game. Unfortunately for Ardo, they didn't enjoy much luck going forward, failing to score for the 3rd time in 5 games. Although Valkenburg had been dropped after a number of ineffective displays, Jonsson's inclusion did little to change their fortune. There was only one occasion where he got in behind the Groningen defence, but wasn't able to come up with an answer. While it remained 1-0, set pieces looked the best bet, and there was invention from El Kayati for Groenendijk's side, but not from Wilfried Cannon at the far post. A well-worked free kick and great delivery from Myers, but the end product had been lacking all evening. Having done well coming back to help out, he promptly lost the ball 5 seconds later and couldn't prevent it moving forward and becoming Groningen's second. Drost ably assisting Idrissi, who slotted a 4th in the last 4 games for club and country. And the Northerners were on their way up to 12th place, putting 5 points between themselves and the bottom 3. Jonsson's best chance actually came straight from the resulting kickoff. Groningen more susceptible than they should have been to a swift attack that saw the Norwegian denied by Pat, who celebrated just a second clean sheet of the season. The absence of Immers in particular hit the hosts, but he'll be back from suspension to face Twente. From Groningen's perspective, Faber said the levels of self-confidence are now where they should be, which bodes well for games to come, particularly for Pat, who flew across goal to keep out another Jonsson header. A visit to bottom side Roders next, where they'll be hoping to make it 3 wins from 4 games. This one was secured thanks to a late show of defiance from their keeper, as Ardo finally woke up to their predicament, but too late to save the game. It ended in frustrating fashion for Jonsson, who saw another chance pass him by from Danny Bakker's deflected shot. Valkenburg, too, came up short, and from the resulting counter-attack, Faber's side secured their biggest win of the season. Drost and Idrissi were their standout pair, the ones that had done most damage to Ardo, and they combined again, with stoppage time approaching, to set up Bakuna. First this season for the 20-year-old midfielder, only his second ever senior goal. He's hopeful of following his brother Leandro to bigger leagues in future, but for the moment he still has plenty to do in the Eredivisie. Groningen close to within 2 points and a place of their opponents. Both are just outside the top 10. It's been a mixed season for Willem II, who've exchanged runs of consecutive defeats and victories so far before drawing the last 2. The late strike from Bartholomew Ogbeke that grabbed them a point at VVV Venlo meant they began this just outside the bottom 3. This time the Nigerian was looking to strike early. Heracles, in contrast, were enjoying a decent spell and sat 8th after winning 4 of the last 5. However, they picked up only 1 point away from home so far and never recovered from being hit by 3 goals in the opening 21 minutes. Fran Sol flicked in the first with a wonderful piece of invention as the hosts enjoyed more joy down the left-hand side. Ben Reenstra's overlapping run allowed the Spanish striker to score his first since coming back after surgery for testicular cancer. That made it 7 in 12 games so far, plus another couple in their progress in the Dutch Cup. This was a 1400th Eredivisie match for Willem II, who might have enjoyed an even more productive opening had Fernando Lewis been able to find a way through there. Their coach Owen van der Looy felt they owed it to the fans and to each other to put on a good display after being angry, conceding 3 and only just snatching a draw against VVV. The shots continue to rain in, with Ismail Azawi also having a go. But again, Ogbeke stole the headlines with 2 more goals to cap another decisive display. This was just his 5th appearance following 7 months out with a serious knee injury. He started the last 3, and this was a 5th goal in that time. It came courtesy of Tom Hayes' cross and a prodigious leap at the far post. Little chance for the Heracles goalkeeper Bram Castro this time. But it was another decent showing from Willem II's man between the post, Matthijs Brandenhorst. He got his chance after injury to former number 1 Timon Wellenreuter, and he's now keeping the German on the bench. His defenders didn't really help him out here after Roy van Niemeyer's shot, but he made sure he had a clear view when the midfielder tried again and turned it round the post. After assisting the first, Rienstra had a big part to play in the third too, closing down Jamiro, forcing a mistake that handed possession to Sol, and he was soon on his way, biding his time before playing in Ogbeke again. They'd also put a bit of thought into the celebration, coming up with a bullfighting theme for this one. Heracles again left exposed at the back. Delightful van der Looy, while his opposite number John Stegeman felt his side were lucky to go in just 3-0 down and deserved nothing from the game. The desire and the ambition continued to come from the hosts, who didn't want to stop at just 3. Ogbeke played his part in setting up another chance for Hay. At this point, they looked like they could score every time they came forward, and Stegeman's back line looked vulnerable each time too. It wasn't just one-way traffic, but it wasn't far off, and Heracles didn't help themselves when rare chances did arrive. With the goal at his mercy, 6 yards out, Paul Gladen could only fire straight at Brandenhorst. The congratulations that followed showed just how fired up everyone was from front to back. On this form, Sol and Ogbeke will soon be holding their side up the table and away from danger. They finished as the architects of the win. Sol himself could have had another late on as more tired defending led to lacklustre clearances, but they'd already done enough to lift themselves up to 14th. With nothing more to lose and little to gain, Stegemann handed a late debut to German midfielder Sebastian Jakubiak, picked up on a free from Rödinghausen, a side in the 4th tier of German football. And with his first touch in Dutch football, he managed to score just 14 seconds later. A remarkable introduction to life in the Eredivisie, and the only real high point of the evening for the club from Almelo. They dropped to 9th. Willem II will have a chance to put further daylight between themselves and the bottom three when they face NAC Breda on Friday, the side just below them. Feyenoord and Vitesse began their meeting level on points in 7th and 6th, as the champions looked for a first home league win since the end of August. The last time they'd gone 5 league games here without a win was back in the 1990-91 season, but it was the visitors and defender Fankati Dabo that looked to strike first. Picked out by Bart Nieuwkoop, Remke Pasveer got down swiftly enough. But it wouldn't be long before last season's top scorer was making his mark. Sitting 14 points behind PSV, they couldn't afford to drop any more, particularly at home. And the goal which decided this one was scored in impressive fashion as they literally swept from one goal line to the other in the space of 23 seconds. It started with Mikael Nelum getting the better of Milot Rashica and ended with Jørgensen prodding in another important goal. In between, there were important contributions from Sam Larsson, Jørgensen himself and Sofyan Amrabat, who carried the ball a long way. And also had the intelligence to link up with Steven Berghuis before crossing for Feyenoord's number 9. A 5th in 6 games for him, after previously only scoring in the opener here against Twente. Amrabat justifying his continued inclusion at the expense of Jens Toornstra too. He had plenty to do to get on the end of the ball from Berghuis, but did well to outsprint Navarone 4. Just the start that Giovanni van Bronckhorst had been looking for. They had a decent record against Vitesse to uphold here too, having lost only 2 of the last 24 meetings. And the goal seemed to boost their confidence for the remainder of the half, although the failure to find a second then led to that dipping in the second period. Before that, though, chances came and went. Berghuis was beginning to control things, and what a free kick when a frustrated 4 tripped him up. The most was certainly made of the contact. But he also made the most of the opportunity. Quick thinking saw Jørgensen with a clear sight of goal again. This time his connection wasn't enough. He looked offside, but the flag stayed down. And after going to sleep, Vitesse were let off the hook. He might have been fractionally beyond the last defender, but it was a close one. Vitesse coach Henk Fraser was disappointed that his side was so hesitant in the opening stages, but he felt as the game went on, they did become equals. They came out of their shells as Feyenoord's euphoria died down, and they took a few unnecessary risks at the back. Tony Vilhena losing out to 4, who then tried to catch Brad Jones out at his near post. They got away with it this time, but less than 2 minutes later, the champions were at it again. After a series of good displays off the bench, Mason Mount was handed his second start in midfield for the visitors, the second in a row after an impressive showing against Ardo. And the 18-year-old on loan from Chelsea caught the eye again, along with Dabo, 2 of the 3 Chelsea players to start, as well as Miazga. His pass for Matthaus was perfectly timed and weighted, and it took a decent stop from Jones to deny the Slovenian an equaliser. He couldn't stop scoring in the opening weeks of the season, but things have dried up for him, with only 1 goal in October and 1 in November. Vilhena's hoping to go the other way after a barren and largely disappointing start to his campaign, which mirrored that of Feyenoord. The midfielders looked more like his old self in the last 2 weeks and scored the opener in Groningen. It's too early to say if he's back to his best, but he'll have been frustrated not to make more of that. The opportunity afforded him by the overlapping Nieuwkoop. And given their slender lead, Feyenoord as a whole were disappointed not to come away with more. Nieuwkoop's return from injury has given them a better balance and a better attacking right-back in the mould of Rick Karstorp. He was involved in plenty of good things, but either the execution wasn't there or, like here, the goalkeeping from Pasveer was good. Sam Larsson, the man denied, before Jurgensen took over and eventually found Nelum. And they continued to improve as the game wore on. Larsson firing in the home side's final chance of the first half before a more disappointing second period saw them hanging on at times in the game. Van Bronckhorst called the second half display very poor, and they became visibly more and more nervous as it progressed, and the second goal failed to materialise. Only as the final 15 minutes approached did they wake up again, but moves like this, which led to a Berghuis effort, were few and far between. And the next one could well have had consequences for the rest of the season. Captain Karim El Amadi was leading the charge downfield when he was pulled back by 4 and landed awkwardly. Play continued with Feyenoord on the attack, but once Jurgensen had again come off second best against Pasveer, it became clear that something serious had happened to their Moroccan midfielder. The captain's right leg had got caught underneath him. Toornstra was given the final 6 minutes in his place, but the club are waiting on the result of a scan to find out just how serious it is. He'll certainly be missing this week as they conclude the Champions League group matches when Napoli visit De Kuip. After that, it's a visit to Utrecht, which also looks beyond him at the moment. Much huffing and puffing in the final stages produced one more chance for Larsson, but no further success for the champions. Van Bronckhorst insisted last week they were still in the title race, but unless PSV suffer their own serious wobble, 14 points is a lot to make up. A draw from next week's meeting of first and third, PSV and Ajax would certainly suit them, but it will take an impeccable performance in the second half of the season to even remain in the frame. They moved up to 5th, now a point behind Zwolle and 4 off Ajax. Vitesse dropped a place to 7th. 6 wins in a row had lifted AZ up to 3rd place, right on the coattails of Ajax. So their draw the day before was an extra incentive to go for the win at VVV and replace them in 2nd spot. The hosts had drawn their last 3 and not managed a league win since the end of September, but Torino Hunter's break and some unconvincing defending from Thomas Ouwejan gave them a sniff of a chance, although Hunter's eventual shot left much to be desired. Losing the lead in the final seconds against Willem II last time out had also given the home side a reason to make amends. They still enjoyed a 4-point cushion above the bottom 3, but after a mistake from AZ's Pantelis Hatzidiakos, they needed Hunter to be more ruthless. That wasn't the case, and the striker has only 1 league goal to his name so far in October's heavy loss to PSV. But it was still a decent stop from AZ goalkeeper Marco Bizzo. At the other end, the visitors, like Vitesse, have a striker who began the season with 6 goals in his first 5 games, but 4 of Wout Weghorst's 5 since have come in the cup against lower league opposition. The majority of VVV's, 9 of their 16 in fact, have stemmed from set pieces. They've been a cornerstone of their solid start to life back in the Eredivisie. But that does mean creating chances from open play has proved more difficult. Lennart Thij and Ralf Seuntjens combined well enough here, but the VVV striker could only hit the post from a tight angle. It was an RZ set-piece that saw them put the ball in the net for the first time, although their enjoyment was short-lived as the referee Bas Nijhuis quickly ruled it out for a foul. Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh pulling Roel Janssen to the ground just as the kick was taken. Weghorst denied what he felt was a legitimate goal through no fault of his own. And RZ coach John van den Brom didn't look like he agreed either. On second viewing though, this is a rather obvious foul. VVV's last home win in this fixture had come in August 1987. All but one of the team hadn't even been born then, and they managed to keep it tight until late in the second half. Even though AZ had enough chances to go in the lead, Van den Brom felt they also gave too much away. Ouwejan neglecting to spot Guus Til screaming for the ball. Molly Stein, Van den Brom's former assistant at ADO Den Haag, probably suspected their early chances would be the best they'd get, and they hadn't made the most of them. They had to wait for a set piece of their own, and an own goal, off the head of Sontjens, who got caught on the wrong foot at the near post. If the travelling fans had been hoping for a Sontjens goal, they would have been thinking of his younger brother Mats, who plays in the AZ midfield. This was just the third time the brothers have come up against each other, and the first in the Eredivisie. The goal prompted a change from the hosts, who withdrew defender Moreno Rutten and brought on Jonathan Opoku for his fifth appearance. And moments later, he was presented with their best chance of the half, picked out by Clint Leemans. Surprising, the visiting defence was that generous, and also that the midfielder was so imprecise. The points were sealed with 6 minutes to go, thanks to the unlikeliest of scorers. 20-year-old Hatzidiakos had never managed a senior goal. Injuries have presented him with his chance this season. And having come up for the original corner, he remained in the vicinity of the VVV penalty area. The other Sontjens brother Mats picked up an assist by picking him out. Dispatched brilliantly by the young Greek defender, who got there just ahead of Weghorst, who surely wouldn't have hit this any better. A moment to remember for him. But a blank for VVV, who now face a trip north to Heerenveen. Their best second-half chances both fell to Opoku. The next he made himself, after getting away from defender Stijn Woutens. But Bizo proved hard to beat, as he had all afternoon. AZ up to second place, with Heracles coming to Alkmaar at the weekend. They are looking like a real force this season, although their 3 defeats have come against PSV, Feyenoord and surprisingly Excelsior. VVV are now 13th. Heerenveen began the visit to bottom side Roda in 8th, 10 places and 11 points above their opponents, and they also had the first chance to threaten when Docker Schmidt headed over from close range. A bright start to the season in August and September gave way to some October gloom for the visitors, who'd won just once in their previous 8 matches. But they had the chances here to establish control in the first period, the next falling to Pelle van Amersfoort, but it proved a blank first half for both teams. Roda's technical director, Harm van Veldhoven, has been vocal in the last few weeks about stability at the club and building for the future, as well as taking a long-term view. Part of that's been urging fans not to rush into judgment on coach Robert Molenaar. But they were only spared a half-time deficit by poor Heerenveen finishing. Michel Vlap on this occasion, the man guilty of spurning a decent chance when one-on-one with keeper Hidde Jurius. Fans, though, have been vocal too about performances they've seen and the lack of goals, with German striker Danny Shaheen coming in for stick. He's managed only 2 of Roda's 10 up to this point and missed the best chance of the first half. Set up well by Simon Gustafsson. Molenaar clearly found it hard to take. They played nice football here, but all too often the final ball or finish was lacking. Nemanja Mihailovic, who was another getting a rare start, just a third since joining in the summer, did well to get forward. Fairman's luck was out, and he didn't look like capping his own chance in the starting 11 with a goal. The half-time whistle meaning there was no time to dwell on it. However, with the hour mark approaching, Veerman finally made his mark after a sequence of passes with Vlap. Simple enough, and he matched his goal against the same opponents last season. A second in the space of 3 games too. Now the task is to try and make it back-to-back starts. However, his teammates failed to build on that, and Roda equalised 11 minutes later. Shaheen heading in Adil Arsal's delivery and sending a message to all 4 sides of the ground too. It's been construed by fans as criticism and by Van Veldhoven and his manager as a message for everyone to stick together. The club even issued a statement backing up the striker's explanation post-match that it was aimed at trying to get everyone on side. However, not everyone saw it that way at the time. The optimism hadn't quite spread right around the stadium just yet, particularly not with Heerenveen now playing on the counter-attack and looking dangerous. That in turn left space for Roda to exploit if they could win the ball back, and having a passer like Gustafsson in midfield gave them a chance. That ball was perfect for Mario Engels, but his shot was anything but. However, Gustafsson did have an important part to play in the eventual winner, extracting himself from the attention of Morten Thorsby and setting up Jannes van Steenkiste. Schmidt then dwelled on the ball, which saw Rosheuvel pinch it back, and sub Livia Milts slam it in. A rare sight indeed for the long-suffering Limburgers. The deflection on the way through left goalkeeper Ronne Hahn off balance. This was a big moment for the 20-year-old Belgian, who was making only his second senior appearance. A proud one too for Molenaar, who at last has a tangible result to point to as proof of progress. Next though, it's a resurgent Groningen, while Heerenveen host VVV. It's been a standout season so far for PSV, who'd won 12 of their first 13, the only loss coming when Heerenveen were in their prime back in early September. Sparta, in contrast, sat third from bottom, but had shown signs of recovery with a 4-game unbeaten run prior to last week's loss to Utrecht. With only 2 wins to their name all season, though, getting anything in Eindhoven seemed a forlorn hope, particularly when Irving Lozano got the better of Michel Breuer. But Sparta got bodies in the way, Gerard Florinus clearing the most dangerous effort, and they were eventually able to hack it away. It'll be tough to keep up this sequence of results all season, but if they could, then PSV would surpass their own record points total of 88 when they won the title in 2015. They had the chances to put this game to bed in the first half, but more than once so far this season, Sparta keeper Roy Kortsmit has kept them in games. He is a solid last line of defence and proved equal to Jurgen Lecardia. Clever shooting from the PSV man, who checked before firing through the legs of Breuer, but it was even better goalkeeping. The last Sparta win here came back in the 1995-96 season, but sensing they had nothing to lose and having survived PSV's opening assault, they had a go, even if it was from far out. Florinus almost caught Jeroen Zoet out with a shot that he didn't appear to see properly until late on. The last point the visitors had gained here at the Philips Stadium was in 2010, the year they were last relegated from the top flight. But with the hosts continuing to spurn opportunities, their belief would only grow. A wonderful pass from Gaston Pereiro found Lecardia galloping away, but his determination to go it alone meant the chance was wasted. With Steven Bergwijn in a much better position too, as well as Marco van Ginkel, but Kortsmit coming out on top again. Philip Cocu admitted he was frustrated with their attacking play and their inability to make the chances count, a problem harking back to PSV of last season. Lozano continued to impress though. He's been grabbing headlines for his goals, but also has much to offer as a creator. He put in a lot of good work to win the ball back before crossing for Bergwijn. More last-ditch defending saw Frederick Holst get in the way. PSV had already won 17 home matches in a row and now needed just 4 more to match 1987's club record of 21. But they also needed Zoet to be alert at the end of the half when Sparta's best move of the half ended with Nick Proschwitz bearing down on goal. He got his first on his first start in last week's match with Utrecht, but this game yielded the German nothing. The introduction of Luc de Jong at the half-time in place of Bergwijn was aimed at shaking things up, with Sparta having adapted well at the back to PSV's attacking shape. And with less than 7 minutes of the second half gone, he made an impact, turning in Josh Brennett's cross. Although Sparta felt that he'd fouled Sander Fischer in getting to it. No decision forthcoming from referee Simon Mulder, and so the goal stood. A tough call from the referee, with arms in action from both players. PSV getting the benefit of the doubt. Alex Pastor, the Sparta coach, felt that it could have easily gone their way. Fischer was then far too easily bypassed as PSV looked to turn the screw and find the second goal. Defenders across the Eredivisie have found Lozano tough to deal with so far. Here, he was much too quick for the big centre-half, and so again, it came down to Kortsmit against PSV. And again, the Sparta keeper won. This time with Pereiro, as Lozano got a second chance at a cross. Fine reactions from the man standing between them and a heavy defeat. Like Feyenoord though, PSV weren't able to take the sting out of the game and give themselves the cushion of a 2-goal lead. Van Ginkel was the next to be denied by more lightning reactions. While there was no significant threat at the other end, Cocu still found the lack of a bigger lead frustrating. Twice in the space of just over a minute, the PSV captain came close. At times the build-up was made to look far too easy as Sparta backed off to defend the 18-yard line. That left plenty of time and space for Van Ginkel to weigh things up. And that time Kortsmit would have had no chance. With Ajax boosting their goal difference in the last 2 weeks, this was a missed opportunity for PSV to do the same. Try as he might to stay out of the firing line, Fischer kept finding himself at the centre of things. He'd already been caught out on a few occasions by the Mexican, but found himself coming off second best again. This time, he did catch up with Lozano just inside the box, and did catch his leg too, just outside. The PSV man staying upright long enough to get away, but then losing his footing. Such was the gap between the two that the referee took no action. Now it was PSV's turn to feel hard done to at that end. The luck, perhaps, evening itself out. No second goal, but also no drop points for PSV, who edged 10 ahead of Ajax. The gap to second, and now AZ, was restored to 8, ahead of the crucial weekend visit to Amsterdam. Pastor's men will take on Vitesse. With Breda coach Stijn Vreven serving a one-match touchline ban after his sending-off last week, his assistant Rob Penders was the man in the dugout as they looked to banish the memories of their last home outing, the 8-0 thrashing by Ajax. That result left them second bottom, while Excelsior were in the top 10, mainly thanks to a brilliant away record of 4 wins and a draw, their only defeat coming on the last away trip to Utrecht. Given that, and the home side's run of 7 games without a win, it seemed Excelsior were favourites. But Angelino's first professional goal last week had clearly left him with a taste for more, and the Manchester City man was swiftly looking to make more headlines. That might have been a goal of the season contender had it gone in. The first or second attempt as he followed up on the floor. Jürgen Mattei, the man bamboozled by his flick. Also in the host's favour was the fact that Excelsior had actually won only one of their last 15 visits here, and Breda weren't playing like a side drained of confidence. They were actually the ones asking most of the questions and taking the game to the visitors. Munir El Alouchi bringing keeper Ogmundo Christensen into action, and Giovanni Corta wasting the follow-up. It had been over 300 minutes since they last scored a goal here. Rai Vloot, the man to get it against Groningen on the 16th of September. But the way they played in the opening 20 minutes suggested one wasn't far away, and Vloot had the chance to end his own and his team's drought when played in by Thierry Ambrose. But his wait would go on. Ambrose had waited even longer, over 900 minutes by the time Breda were awarded a penalty midway through the first half, when Milan Masop was adjudged to have pulled Corta to the ground at the far post. Referee Kevin Blom in no doubt. The Frenchman had scored in the opening 2 4-1 defeats to PSV and Vitesse, but not since. That finally changed as he slotted the ball into the corner just past the Icelandic keeper's glove. And an afternoon of optimism looked assured. Excelsior were surprisingly ineffective in the first half given their previous excellence on the road. And Breda came under little pressure, allowed to advance into the opposition half before the pressing seriously began. Emboldened by his penalty, Ambrose also made decent runs, and the second of their 4 Manchester City loanees was picked out again by Angelino. Christensen down smartly to save. For visiting coach Mitchell van der Gaag, things could only get better in the second period. But the hosts could have made life much easier for themselves by taking 1 or even 2 of their many chances. The next of the City contingent to have a go was Pablo Mari, laid on again by Angelino's left foot, which looks to have a bright future along with the rest of him. The crossbar denying the defender a second goal in Dutch football. Vreven watching on from his position in the stand. The lack of a second goal in the first half was forgotten early in the second when Ambrose won them another penalty. Wout Faes This time was the man making the clumsy challenge, which he felt was on the edge of the box rather than just inside. The referee didn't agree. The striker certainly made sure he went to ground well inside the 18-yard box. Well, it seemed that contact happened right on the line. There was no change of the award though, and the game had its potential turning point. Seconds later, Ambrose had his second. And Nat Breda were well on the way to a well-deserved win, with Excelsior having failed to trouble them up to this point. Adwia did make his mark though as the midway point of the second period approached, and he picked up an assist. Picking the ball up deep after a clearance, he managed to pick out Van Dounen, who finally registered a first goal on his 10th appearance of the season. Bartram's slip on the sodden ground certainly helped his cause. And the visitors were alive again, back in the game with 25 minutes to go. What the home side needed was a confident response, and they were always likely to get it from Angelino, who was still buzzing around with as much energy as ever. This time, a goal eluded him as his shot was neither accurate enough to score, nor inaccurate enough for Ambrose to benefit coming in. With 15 minutes to go, the number of Manchester City players on the field briefly increased to 5 with the introduction of Pablo Fernandes, who replaced Corta. And it wasn't long before he was making it 3-1 and making the game safe. Unsurprisingly, a few other loanees were involved in making it happen. Ambrose and Angelino joining El Alouchi in setting things up. The end product, a first senior goal for the 19-year-old forward, which seemed to catch the goalkeeper by surprise. With Roda winning earlier, it was imperative that they responded, and this looked like a promising sign. The win moved them out of the bottom three ahead of a Brabant derby against Willem II at the weekend. Excelsior will host Pek Zwolle. That's all for this week. We'll be back with all the highlights from round 15 in the next programme. Until then, from me, Jonathan Beck, it's goodbye.